Hi, I'm Karina Gardner, and today we're going to put together the Ava Kate chain quilt. I'm hoping by this point you also have the PDF. It was given to shop owners, so maybe you've received it in a newsletter, or maybe you received it when you purchased it online. Either way, I hope you get the PDF for the whole quilt. If you don't have a PDF and you really bad want it, it's usually available sometime around the year. I'll send it out through my Fabric VIP group. That's available at karinagardner.com. I send out a free PDF every single week. Let's talk about what you need for this block. I'm using, of course, Ava Kate. I'm using kind of the paisley. You need two 6.5 by 2.5 inch rectangles in one of the colors. You need four 2.5 inch by 3.5 inch blocks. You need 4 of those. I was thinking right on it, but I want to make sure. And then you need two 2.5 inch by 3 inch blocks, okay? So this doesn't amount for a lot of fabric, and I'm gonna do 12 blocks in the quilt, so you're gonna need 12 of these. And then for the white, what you're going to need is a 4.5 by 6.5 inch white piece for the middle. You're going to need two 2.5 inch squares in white. And then lastly, you need 4 of 2.5 by 3 inch blocks for the outside piece. And then for your secondary sashing or block, whatever you want to call this piece, you're going to need like extra fabric, which you will have for 2.5 inch blocks for your little square, and you're going to want to mix that up. You need quite a few of those. And then you need two white pieces on the side, and these are 2.5 by 3.5 inches, okay? So those are all your dimensions. This comes together really quick and so beautifully. So what we're going to do is we basically can chain piece, because you can flip over the top of each of these pieces right here and just sew all of these top pieces together. So I'll just sew each of those and then cut them apart, and it just makes it really fast. Okay, so you could press these if you wanted, but I'm not even gonna press them because it just comes together so quickly. Just gonna cut them apart, and then I'm just gonna sew the bottom pieces on. And you can see here, just make sure you've got them in the right places, okay? You can see, easy peasy, right? So we're just going to sew on the bottom pieces, and I'm just going to do that all in a row. Okay, so once you cut these apart, you can go ahead and press them. Now, there are no nested seams per se in this block, which is why it's such an amazing beginner block, but I still, just to help all the bulk of this, I do like to press so that everything is evened out. So like if I press these all down, I'll press these up, down, up, down. I don't know which way I'm pointing, but you get the idea. And so go ahead and press them, but just make sure and press them back and forth. It just helps with the overall bulkiness. Okay, once you have these in place, this is kind of a funny block just because usually you're working in rows, but this time you're working in columns. You're gonna sew these together. Now, you'll see this should be bigger than this piece, okay? This should not match up. It should be centered on it. So if for some reason you like this is a tiny bit shorter, that's okay. You're just gonna have to ease your fabric a little bit. You just need to make sure and center it the best you can, okay? So go ahead and center it, and go ahead and sew all of those rows together. Okay, you can press it and you can trim it if you want, but that's your final block. Isn't that so cute? Let's see if I can move this out of the way. It's just it's like a different block, which is what I appreciate. I've been doing a ton of 6 by 12 blocks, 6 by 12, 6 by 6, or 12 by 12 blocks, and it's just nice to have like a different kind of block. So this little bit of sashing here, you are just gonna do the same thing. You're basically creating a vertical sashing piece. So I'm gonna put a white piece on either side. Okay, so it's this piece, which I need to press, but it ends up being the piece that you use to link everything up. And it should be, this area should be smaller than this one. because you're doing this kind of little chain linking piece. And that's it. Isn't that so fun? Let's put together this quilt. So you've made the block and you know how the sashing works. So move those aside. Let's talk about the yardage that you need. So you need about an 1/8 of a yard or less of your Ava Kate fabrics. You need 12 of those fabrics to make this quilt. You could of course get a fat quarter pack and use the rest of the fabric for another quilt, or you can piece together for backing, or you can make it into a border, whatever you want. But you don't need a ton of fabric to make the actual quilt itself. You do need diversified pieces unless you're doing a full all one color quilt. For white, you need a yard of white for all the in-between pieces. You do need a 3/8 of a yard for your borders. And the borders for mine is in white, but you can do it in whatever you want, which is why I give you different yardage for it. And then you need 3/8 also for your binding. Your backing, you're gonna need a yard and 2/3, okay? And your final quilt size is 54 inches by 42 inches. It's kind of a longer horizontal quilt. Of course, you can do it vertical. You can make it into twin size by adding blocks. So you can make some changes there, but I'm just kind of giving you what I'm gonna make today so that you can see how it all ends up, okay? As far as cutting goes, so really for these, you need 12, you're doing like 12 cents, and you'll see this in the PDF, but basically you need 2 each of 2.5 by 6.5 inch rectangles. You need 2 of those. You need the 4 each of the 12 fabrics of 2.5 by 3.5 inch rectangles. And you need 2 of 2.5 by 3 inch rectangles. You need 2 each of those in 12 different fabrics. And this is much easier if you have the PDF to be able to see that, which by the way, you can get from my Fabric VIP, or hopefully you got from a quilt shop, or one of those entities. In terms of white pieces, you need 12 total of this larger piece, this 4.5 by 6.5 inch. You just need 12 of these because that's the centerpiece of your block. You need 24 of these 2.5 inch squares in total. You need 2.5 by 3 inch. You need 48 of those, 2.5 by 3 inch. And then 2.5 by 3.5 inch, you need 32 of those, okay? And that should get you up to speed. So what you're going to do is you're gonna sew together all of those blocks, and then you're going to also sew several sashings. So you need 12 total blocks. You need 16 of these sashing pieces. Okay, so I'm gonna sew all of those blocks together, and then I'm gonna show you how I lay the whole thing out. So here is the layout of your Ava Kate quilt. You can see I've just tried to mix up the fabrics, and I have borders. Now your in-between pieces seem like they're gonna be short, but once you start sewing it up, you won't need that much extra. So I have included an extra 2.5 inch width piece that you're gonna use, and that will add, you can just add a little bit to every single one of those if you need it, depending on how much shrinkage you get with your fabric. Hey guys, I thought I would give you, just to finalize everything, give you guys a sneak peek at what the final quilt is gonna look like. It's quite pretty, quite large, but really fun. I'm excited to machine quilt it. If you want this PDF and my weekly PDFs with tutorials, all you have to do is subscribe at karinagardner.com to my Fabric VIP group. So super simple, and I hope you guys have a great day. See ya.